I've reached a portion of the book For Your Own Good by Alice Miller that talks about adolescence or puberty, which I find super interesting because I've just always heard lots of different narratives about why kids kind of turn bad at a certain, in like middle school or high school or whatever. Parents often have such success with the numerous methods that they use to subdue their children that they don't encounter any real problems until the children reach puberty. The cooling off of feelings and drives during the latency period abets parents in their desire to have model children. In the book The Golden Cage by Hilda Brunch, parents of anorexic daughters describe how gifted, well-mannered, successful, well-adjusted, and considerate their children had been. The parents cannot understand this sudden change. They are left helpless and uncomprehending by an adolescent who seems to be rejecting all norms and whose self-destructive behavior cannot be modified by logical arguments or by the subtle devices of poisonous pedagogy. At puberty, adolescents are often taken totally surprised by the intensity of their true feelings, after having succeeded in keeping them at distance during the latency period. With the spurt of biological growth, these feelings, including rage, anger, rebelliousness, falling in love, sexual desire, enthusiasm, joy, enchantment, and sadness, seek full expression. But in many cases, this would endanger the parent's psychic balance. If adolescents were to show their true feelings openly, they would run the risk of being sent to prison as dangerous terrorists, or be put in mental institutions and considered insane. This is why I don't know what's allowed on here. Rug users attempt to adapt to society by struggling against their authentic feelings. But since they cannot live entirely without them, in the storm of puberty, they try to regain access to them with the help of rugs, which seem to do the trick, at least in the beginning. But society's views, which are represented by the parents in which the adolescent has long ago internalized, must prevail. So once we get to a certain age, it's not that we have to suppress our feelings because that's what our parents want. It becomes, we think that all of society expects us to not have these feelings, and we expect it of ourselves because we have internalized our parents and kind of generalized them to being what society is. The consequences of having strong, intense feelings are rejection, isolation, ostracism, and the threat of no longer existing, i.e., self-destruction. The rug addict punishes himself for seeking his true self, certainly a justifiable and essential goal, by destroying his own spontaneous feelings, repeating the punishment that was inflicted on him in early childhood when he showed his first signs of vitality. Almost every, with an H, addict describes having initially experienced feelings previously unknown intensity. He becomes even more conscious of the emptiness of his usual emotional life. He simply can't imagine that this experience is possible without the rug that starts with an H. And he understandably begins to long for it to be repeated. For in these out-of-the-ordinary moments, the young person discovers how he might have been. He has made contact with his self. And as might be expected, once this has happened, he can find no rest. He can no longer act as though his true self had never existed. Now he knows that it does exist, but he also knows that ever since early childhood, this true self has not had a chance. And so he strikes a compromise with his fate. He will encounter his self from time to time without anybody finding out. Not even he will realize what is involved here, for it is the stuff that produces the experience, meaning the H. The effect comes from outside and is difficult to bring about. It will never become an integrated part of his self, and he will never have to or be able to assume responsibility for these feelings. The intervals between one fix and the next characterized by total apathy, lethargy, emptiness, or uneasiness and anxiety, bear this out. The fix is over like a dream that one can't remember and that can have no effect on one's life as a whole. Becoming dependent on an absurd compulsion is likewise comprehensible in terms of the addict's previous history. Since dependence has typified his entire previous life, he is hardly aware of it as such. A 24-year-old woman who has been addicted to H since about 16 years old appears on TV and explains that she supports her habit by means of sex work and has to take drugs to be able to put up with those animals. She makes a very sincere impression, and we can only appreciate and sympathize with everything she says. Only the matter-of-factness with which she regards this vicious cycle as the possible way of her life puzzles us. This woman obviously cannot imagine a different life free of her addiction because she has never known anything like a free decision. The only life she has ever known has been one dominated by a destructive compulsion, and this is why she is unable to grasp the absurdity of such a path. It will not surprise us to learn that she continues to idealize both of her parents, as is frequently the case with drug addicts. She feels guilty for being so weak, for disappointing and disgracing her parents. She also says society is truly to blame, which, of course, cannot be denied. But the real predicament, the conflict between her search for her true self and the necessity of adapting to the needs of her parents, cannot be recognized as long as she continues to protect her parents from self-reproach.